Got 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the regular session for September 27th, 2023 to order. All right. Can we get it started with a roll call, please?
Councilmember Loman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas.
Present.
Councilmember Hillberg.
Here.
Councilmember McCauley.
Here.
And Mayor Burse.
Present.
I don't do Zoom, but.
All right, guys, we're in open session. Come on. All right. Do we have any public comment on the closed session item this evening? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move into closed session at this time. And if anybody has anything else they'd like to provide a comment on, now is the time. We will re-adjourn following the closed session here shortly. What do you think? About 15 minutes, 30 minutes? 15. All right, about 15 minutes. We'll be right back. So we're going to go ahead and call the open session back to order. We had no reportable action from closed session this evening, so we'll move directly to our Pledge of Allegiance and then roll call. So if you please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll take a roll call, please.
Councilmember Loman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas.
Present.
Councilmember Hillberg.
Here.
Councilmember McCauley.
Here.
And Mayor Burse.
Here. All right. This time we'll go to the approval of the agenda order. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
I'll second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving to item 2F. This is the statement of conflict of interest item. Has anybody received $250 plus that they need to state? No. All right, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to our consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial in nature. They'll be moved on in one blanket motion. Anybody from the public or from council may pull an item from consent for discussion. Would anybody like to pull any of our items for discussion this evening? All right, well, seeing none, I will accept a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, consent calendar passes. Moving to agency reports, starting with Placer County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Hey, Sergeant Kevin Griffiths. Thank you, Mayor, council members. I don't have a lot to say today. In fact, I don't really have much of anything. Thanks for coming. The only thing I can say is I think you guys have seen the Facebook post. The DSA finally worked it out with the county as far as raises. We're hoping that'll hopefully put us in the right direction to start doing the recruiting at the levels that we need to. I know the sheriff was in briefing the other day and he talked, we have 15 people signed up that we are sending to the academies in January. 15. Usually we send 6, 4, 3 to these academies. We're sending 15 in the first 2 academies of the year. There are 6 academies total. But the reality to that is those 15 bodies, it's a 6-month academy. Come out of there, you go to 6 months on FTO and training. You go right into the jail for another 4 months of training in there before you're actually a body that we can count as that staffing to fill some of those retirements and stuff we have. So we're still a couple of years out from getting to where we need to be, but every deputy is working their extra overtime, doing what they can to help this office and to help the communities around. Brad Boyer, one of our deputies here in Colfax today, he was working the Union Beat, which was Newcastle this morning, and then coming back up. Deputy Albert just got the position of a detective within our office. And at our next city council meeting, you will meet our new deputy, Melissa Adams. She was going to be here today. Unfortunately, her child was sick, so she was unable to make it. But next one, she'll be here standing in front of you and introducing herself. So if there's any other questions?
Oh, thank you very much.
First, Kim,
Is that number so low because crime was down?
which number are you talking about?
15 that are going into the
There's 15 that we're trying to hire.
That was
15 is a lot.
15 is a huge.
That's a
number
lot.
For us to put into an academy. The sheriff mentioned that we could see 45 people that we're sending to the academy. That's unheard of. That's the basically.
That's a whole academy class right there.
Yeah, that's a full ride to college. If you get that 6 months, you're paid. You're going to, everything is paid for you. You actually get a phone. When I went through the academy back in 93, I paid for everything myself. I did it on my own time. I took out credit cards, stayed at home, ironed my own stuff, took care of everything, had the stress of life. These people are getting that full ride scholarship.
I spent $30,000 to go through the academy myself.
So it's not cheap, but it's worth it in the end when you get out here and you're doing the work. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, California Highway Patrol.
Mayor and council, news officer Jason Lima, Highway 20. They actually right now have a full closure of Highway 20 since Monday, or going on for 2 weeks. So they're rerouting all traffic around that. There are several different locations on Highway 20, but it's closed through traffic. So far during the month of September, our office has handled 28 traffic collisions. 7 of those were injury collisions. We did not have any fatalities so far this month. We have made 3 DUI arrests this month. And as far as citations, we've issued 496 citations, but 3 of those being over 100 miles an hour. So we're actively out there trying to keep things under control and monitoring things, but just trying to keep everything flowing. Anybody have any questions?
I just want, first I want to say it's great to hear that people are slowing down out there and there was only 3 over 100-mile-an-hour tickets so far. But I've heard some complaints about the truck traffic on 174 since 20 is shut down. I know there's some signs posted saying that there's not supposed to be truck traffic on 174. Is there plans for enforcement out there, or are we just kind of trying to
We're
divert trucks?
trying the best we can to limit that, but there's, you know, with all the signage that's out there is telling them they're disclosed, and to go on down to Bell Road, to go over to 49, and we're don't get as much action over on 174 as we have on Interstate 80, so we're.
There we go, sorry. So we are looking into that, but it's not our full primary action right now.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Placer County Fire Department, Cal Fire.
All right, good evening, everybody. Not a lot to update tonight as well. We do plan on doing some prescribed fire operations on Mount Howell next week, hopefully on Monday. Chief Lovelace has been hard at work on the planning processes for that, going through all of our various approvals that we have to get through region, through air quality and all that. So he should be communicating with Jim Lucan if he hasn't already in the coming days. Make sure that's still a go. The weather has to be perfect for it, so we're tentatively shooting for Monday. It's about a 40-acre burn that we're planning to do, but we don't want the smoke to impact the schools or the city. So it's very weather dependent, but we're shooting for Monday. So heads up on that. After that, we'll be looking at the 63-acre plot behind the wastewater treatment plant and implementing some prescribed fire operations behind that as well. And then we have a lot of piles left to burn out on the North Fork Shaded Fuel Break project. So we're going to have a busy winter with some prescribed fire, which is good. For Cal Fire, it continues to be a slow season, which is great. One of the slowest I can remember in my career, which is awesome. So our contracted helicopter that sits at Auburn, the blue one there with our cooperative agreement with Heli 1, will go off contract on Friday. We still have their second ship, which is a Black Hawk at Grass Valley, available to us for the next month. So the one helicopter is going away, but we'll still have one in our back pocket. And then CAL FIRE's not talking about any downstaffing plans for the winter yet, so status quo, and we'll keep watching the weather and see how the next couple of weeks play out. So be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to our nonprofits. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Rick Tatro. I'm the new commander for the American Legion, Post 192 here in Colfax. And I'm here to announce our third annual First Responders Appreciation Dinner. I'm going to read a little bit. So it's a spaghetti dinner, Thursday, October 19th. Social hour starts at 5, dinner starts at 6. We have a meatless plate available. It's at the Colfax Memorial Hall, free admittance. For everybody with reservations in advance, donations are always welcome. A bar will be open for those that wish to have an adult beverage. For reservations, you can call me. I've got flyers, so if somebody would like one, I would give them to. I already contacted most of the first responders here. The representatives from Congressman Kevin Kiley's office will be there. Supervisor Cindy Gustafson will be there, and our Mayor Trinity Burris will be there for our guest speakers. So that's about it. It's free and it's fun. We are limited to 100 people. So we would really appreciate the first responders to get back to us as soon as they can, because we want to make sure that you guys get in there before we bring everybody else in first. That's all I have. If anybody likes has any questions or would like.
What was the date again?
A flyer.
The date?
The date, October 19th. It's a Thursday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right. Do we have any other nonprofits here this evening? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to item 5 on our agenda. This is a presentation for Fred and Renee Abbott regarding the railroad days. I'm going to turn it over to our staff to kick us off.
We had, as you know, a very successful railroad days, and a lot of folks participated in that and work as a joint effort between railroad days and the city to make sure everything ran as smoothly as possible. And so we asked Fred Abbott to come back and say a little something about the event, kind of a post-mortem for the event, and talk about moving forward. So Fred is on Zoom this evening. He had to go back to his permanent home in Arizona, so we have him here remotely tonight. So Fred, if you would like to go ahead and say what you'd like to say.
There we go.
Go ahead. Oh. There you go, Fred. You're unmuted. Oh.
And if Zoom is being problematic, there is a call-in number as well.
Do we have you there? Can you hear us?
Marguerite, do we have the option to call somebody in? I'm not sure if we do, but if we do, then maybe we could try to call his cell phone into the Zoom. We might have to do that.
I texted him. Do you have the call in number?
Okay, go ahead and, Carolyn's gonna go ahead and call him. We'll put him up to the mic. Let's see. They're trying to unmute you.
He's hit the unmute, but it's not doing it.
We'll just
Can
put
you-
him on speaker and then put him up to the
Are you
mic.
okay if I just put you on speakerphone and turn the microphone on? All right, let's see how it'll work. All right, Fred, let's see if this will work.
Okay. I want to thank the city of Colfax, and all of the people of Colfax for the wonderful railroad days event that we had. Without you guys, this thing would have never happened. We, 92 craft vendors. The problem was we've only managed to get 86 craft spaces, so we just put some on the lawns and wherever we could hide them. We had 12 food vendors. Everything went as smoothly as possible. I think the people mover train was a highlight of the event. Oh, along with the Black Flag Gang, of course, we wanted to sit in there too. Renee and I have just absolutely enjoyed the years that we've put this on, and are looking forward to having additional help. I understand Caroline McCulley. Actually, I don't understand. Caroline McCulley is going to be joining the Colfax Railroad Days nonprofit on the board. We have Jeff Campbell, who is the head of the Black Flag Gang. He will be also on the board. And Rachel Smith, who is Jeff Campbell's sidekick. He will also be on the board. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think that Caroline has somebody else that she would like to bring in there also. They will be giving us a hand. We will be back again next year. Just to answer questions and help out with any problems that might arise. But this year, I think, was the best railroad days that we've had since 2018. And I want to thank everybody again.
Thank you, Fred. I think we would all agree. I said, thank you, Fred. I think we all agree. All right. I know we probably have more comments from council and many thank yous we want to say. I know everyone's trying to be careful with the mic right now because we're getting a lot of echoes and feedback. But does anybody want to go ahead and share any thoughts, any thanks?
Just want to say a big thanks to you, Fred and Rainey, for everything you've done to make this event what it is. This is definitely the best one so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing this great tradition you guys started on for a long time. I'm really excited to hear that we've got a board together and we'll be able to continue. So thank you.
And also I want to say thank you, Fred and Rainey. They helped us get on track, and hope to see you again next year. Thank you.
And just to add, Colfax's finest event for sure.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move into our next items here. Starting with our public hearings, we have 2 public hearings this evening. First of which being item 6A. This is the adoption of an urgency ordinance amending our municipal code by addressing the syringe service programs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is really fairly simple. The agenda item presents two requested actions. The first is to adopt an urgency ordinance that would preclude syringe service programs in the city. The second is to introduce and waive the first reading of a permanent ordinance that would do the same thing. Why both? Urgency ordinances are a little touchy. They can only be adopted to protect public health, safety, et cetera, and they can be challenged. So what happens if this urgency ordinance is challenged and the challenge succeeds? Then you have no ordinance. So what we like to do when we're doing an urgency ordinance is to put a regular non-urgency ordinance to back it up. And that way, if the urgency ordinance is challenged, again, we don't anticipate it, but if it's challenged, then the only time period that is in jeopardy is the time period before the regular ordinance becomes effective. So what's the urgency? There has been an application for a syringe service program filed with California Department of Public Health. That was filed on July 23. The public comment period has closed, and California Department of Public Health can now issue permits for these programs. Colfax doesn't have any regulatory scheme on the books. And so theoretically, I don't know if this would withstand legal scrutiny really, but theoretically, you could be compelled by the state to have a syringe service program within the city unless you adopt an ordinance. You wouldn't be the first one to do this. Placer County's adopted one, City of Auburn has adopted one, City of Lincoln, and there were other couple cities talking about them. I don't know if they've adopted them. So what we'd like to do is have you adopt the urgency ordinance tonight, introduce the non-urgency ordinance by title only, waive the first reading, put it over to October 11 for adoption.
And speaking to the other city managers, all the other cities have adopted ordinances, and as has the county, the city, except for the city of Roseville, who just sent a letter of opposition from their police chief.
All right. Well, thank you very much. At this time, we'll go ahead and entertain any questions from council, and then we'll go into public comment. Do you have any follow-up questions on the presentation? All right, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this point. So we are open to public testimony. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this matter, online or in person? All right, well, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and public testimony period. We're going to go ahead and bring it back to the council for action.
I move we adopt the urgency ordinance amending Colfax Municipal Code Title 8 by adding Chapter 8.34 prohibiting syringe service programs in the city of Colfax, introducing and first reading of an ordinance of the city of Colfax Municipal Code Title 8 by adding Chapter 8.34 prohibiting syringe service programs in the city of Colfax. And also that we introduce the urgency ordinance 553 and ordinance 554 by title only. Conduct a public hearing and waive first reading of 554, continue the second reading to the possible adoption on October 11th, 2023.
All right, do we have a second?
I have a second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Those abstained? All right, motion passes. We'll go ahead and move to item 6B. This is the introduction and waiver of the first reading for ordinance 555 to update the zoning code. And we're going to turn it over to our staff for presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Burse, members of the City Council, members of the public. My name is Emmanuel Urso. I'll be presenting this proposed update of the zoning code. We started working on this code amendment quite a while ago. And as you've gone through, I've seen quite a bit of detail in terms of the changes that we're recommending introducing this evening. Can we go to the next slide, please? So as I mentioned back in August when I introduced the topic. The zoning code implements the general plan. It's a tool to implement the long-term vision that's established through the general plan. We have over the last 3 or so years been going through a process of updating the general plan. The environmental impact report has been distributed and is under review for the general plan update. So that we're kind of dovetailing this whole process and culminating with adoption of this ordinance. And then later in November, we'll bring before the council adoption of both the general plan update along with amendments to the zoning map. So we'll have a second ordinance that we'll need to introduce when we adopt the zoning map. Next slide, please. So these changes really kind of, I guess, are sort of 4 areas, general areas. One is implementing some of the changes to the general plan. And then implementing changes required by state law. So there have been changes in the density bonus standards, requirements of state law. So we updated the zoning code to reflect those changes. Same is true with the accessory dwelling units. We replaced the whole second units section of the code with a new accessory dwelling unit chapter. And then there's a lot of small cleanup in the code that we're also going through. So I'll walk through these. I don't think anyone wants me to get into a lot of detail. As I go through, if you have questions about any particular sections, please let me know, and then we can stop and talk about those. Next slide. So starting on page 44 of your agenda packet is where the ordinance starts. So we start with changes to the definition. There's some words that are defined but not used anywhere in the code. There are a few words that we've added to the code and we felt should be defined. We are removing the agricultural zone and adding the mixed use zones to the designation of the zoning districts. There's some clarification in chapter 17.32 regarding the permit requirements. Chapter 17.36, a minor correction to a code reference. Next. Any questions about those first few sections? Okay. In chapter 17.40, this is the chapter that contains the findings that the council would make when approving various types of permits. Again, cleaning up some of the language, removing some redundancies, and removing some inconsistencies. Most planning approvals are valid for 2 years. Planned development permits, currently the code says 1 year. There's no reason there should be a difference. So we just change that, make it to 2 years, make it consistent. In chapter 17.64, so our code is not very concisely written. So there's a list of all these different uses, then in one section, and then the next section has that same list and with a description of what those uses are. And then in subsequent sections, those uses are then put in these tables based on the various zones. So just removing the list of the uses since they're already further down in the code, removing throughout the code where there's reference to agricultural use or zones, those get removed. And then we've added a few classifications of uses such as second dwelling units. In chapter 17.68, we're changing the name of the Special Public Services District to Civic District, and then removed the ag zone standards, use standards and development standards. Any questions about any of these changes? Okay, next slide. In the residential zones, made a few changes to the purpose of the multifamily zone. Currently, it just mentions apartments. There are other types of multifamily dwellings, so we added those to the purpose section. We amended the chart that lists the permitted uses to remove the ag uses, removed two family dwellings, added in the ADUs, and then added in supportive and transitional housing, which is already elsewhere in the code. This again just makes it clear and is required by state law. And then there are some development standards pertaining to the multifamily zones that were just blank. They weren't in the code. So I went to the general plan, which has density standards and so on, and used those to fill in the development standards table. And then one of the more significant changes was creating the new mixed use zone. And this has the mixed use 1 and mixed use 2 zone. We state the purpose of the two zones, the permitted uses in the two zones, whether they're allowed by right or with an administrative permit or subject to conditional use permit. And then for the development standards, we just reference the commercial retail standards. So the mixed use zones are currently commercial retail. So we just refer to the commercial retail standards with one difference, and that is along Main Street. Rather than having a minimum setback requirement, we have a minimum required setback. We have a maximum allowed setback. We want properties to be developed, if something were to be redeveloped along Main Street, that they redevelop up against the property line, not be setback. Any questions about?
Yeah, I have one. Are you saying that you will remove two-family dwellings? Is that what that is saying there? And I just wondered if so, what is a two-family dwelling?
Yeah.
That's not a duplex, is it?
Basically, it's a duplex. So the code allows duplexes in certain residential zones.
Mhm.
Because we're adding accessory dwelling units, you could end up with accessory dwelling units for each primary unit. So under the ADU standards, you can have two ADUs plus a junior ADU plus the primary residence, so 4 units. If you had another dwelling on the same property, a 2-unit dwelling, you could do the same. So you'd have 8 on one property. I don't know that the council would want to go in that direction. So that was that change. And the ADUs really kind of replace what would have been allowed with the 2-unit dwelling. So that was another part of the rationale.
It just seems the ADU allows you to develop an ADU within your own space, right?
It allows you to
just put up a wall and
that
basically create a duplex. It's just going to be an ADU.
Correct.
Okay.
This is just preventing the overbuild on parcels where there's already a duplex. So.
Thank you. Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions about any of? Okay, next slide, please. And then in the commercial zones, there are some minor changes to the uses that are allowed, including or the type of permit allowed. Lodging is, I mentioned there's a list of uses and then that list described, and then the chart with, lodging is in the list of uses, but it's not in any of the zones saying that it's allowed. And so that was an oversight. Obviously, we want lodging in the commercial district. So this adds lodging, adds ADUs, and a few other uses. It requires changes from permitted to requiring a conditional use permit, self-storage facilities, which was an issue that has come up here recently. And then there's a correction in the rear yard setback required in the commercial zone. It's that's corrected. So there's currently the sentence stops. It's an incomplete sentence. So we kind of finish that sentence. And those are the changes in the commercial retails or the commercial zones. And those are on pages 58 through 61 of the agenda packet. Any questions about the changes there? All right, next slide, please. So the density bonus section of the code, in this section of the code, it lists the number of units that could be the density bonus that would be allowed, and it's based on the number of units that are being proposed that are below market rate. That those numbers have changed in state law, and so rather than having these extensive charts with the number of units, we simply refer to state law, and that has changed multiple times actually since the last time our code has been updated. So it just refers to the state law, and we did that in many of the sections in the density bonus section of the code of the ordinance. And then one of the other main changes also was to require reasonable documentation rather than a financial pro forma to establish eligibility. And that again is based on changes in the law. So that is the changes to the density bonus. Parking changes. We added parking standards for ADUs, actually refer to the ADU section of the code for ADU parking. And then we added parking for transitional supportive housing, which is an allowed use in the code, but there's no parking requirements in the current code for that use. There's no questions about these changes. We'll go to the next. And this section, chapter 17.96 or 196 is currently entitled the second unit or second dwelling unit ordinance. We're changing it to the accessory dwelling unit section of the code. And it lays out the standards for ADUs. When I crafted this, I started by using a few local agencies as a template, including the county, Nevada City. They actually adopted theirs several years ago, and there have since been some changes to state law. So we couldn't model it entirely after their ordinance. And thank you to our attorney for helping me work through some of the details on that section of the ordinance. Next. So recommendation, just like the prior item, is that you introduce the ordinance by title only, waive the first reading, and then we intend to bring it back for adoption at the October 11th meeting, and then the ordinance would go into effect 30 days after that. Next. Actually, that's it. That concludes my presentation. So if anyone has any questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Does council have any questions related to the presentation? All right. Thank you.
Quick comment before you open the public hearing. I went through the ADU section in as much detail as I could. I referred to it in my email to Emmanuel as mind numbing. It is so tedious. What will happen once the ordinance is adopted is it goes to HCD for review. And they have apparently they have some people who do nothing but review ADU ordinances, and they go through in just meticulous detail. So we will probably get some comments back, hopefully not too many, but it's an extraordinary process.
As long as it's not doing anything ridiculous like triggering Title 24, we're good. All right. Well, with that, we can go ahead and open up the public hearing. Do we have any comments or testimony from the public on this item? Come on up.
Suzanne Roberts, City of Colfax. Yes, I want to know what a junior ADU is, because I haven't heard that before. So I was hoping he was going to stay here.
Yeah, I'll have Emmanuel come back up and provide a definition.
Yeah, so the state law defines a junior ADU as an accessory dwelling unit that's built within the existing envelope of an existing single family home. And it cannot exceed 500 square feet. And it's on the last page of the draft ordinance if you want to read it in detail.
So that would be something like a garage conversion or something like that.
It could be a garage conversion, or it could be, the bedroom at the end of the hallway that you put a separate entrance into it and provide a little kitchenette. And it does not need to have its own full kitchen. It could have a separate small kitchen. But it's intended to provide an additional kind of independent living space.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Do we have any other questions, comments, or testimony from any members of the public? All right.
We do have one commenter on Zoom. Sadie Edward, go ahead.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my microphone's working perfect. I just wanted to ask the city council, why are Jewish rabbis allowed to suck baby penises?
I'm sorry, is this an item for the regular public comment section? Okay. Thank you. That was obviously not related to this item, so we will not take that comment at this time. Do we have any other comments that are related to this item? Yes.
Tom Ponham, I'm a resident. Does this affect like sewer rates, these additional units? Does that?
I think the answer is maybe.
Yes, so under state law, the city can collect impact fees for accessory dwelling units that are over 750 square feet. And the fee needs to be proportional to the fee that's collected for the primary residence. School district fees can be collected for units over 500 square feet. We can collect the monthly service fee.
So that's something ultimately that would have to be determined during our study, our rate study that's coming up. So maybe. All right, last call for questions, comments, anything specifically related to this item. All right, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. Bringing it back to council for comments, questions, anything else you guys would like to wrap before we take action?
I just have one. It's my understanding that we pretty much have to go with whatever the state says. We don't have a lot to say about it, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve, move to introduce ordinance 555 by title only and waive first reading, schedule the proposed ordinance for a second reading of the public hearing and adopt it at the next regular council meeting on October 11, 2023 to be effective 30 days after adoption.
I second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Seeing none, motion passes. All right, now we will move to item 7, which is public comment. This is the time on the agenda where anybody may comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. So if any comments, whatever your heart desires, this is the time that you can make a comment. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. We do have a comment that came in via email ahead of the meeting. This is from Will Stockwin. He says, I've been watching the big dig on Lincoln Street, wondering what's going on. And now it seems they're continuing the trenching down Rose Avenue. Is this plan to trench down the hill to lift Station 3? And is repaving Lincoln and Rose when the work is done part of the plan? Will Stockwin. And if our city manager could touch on that for us.
Sure. What this project is the infiltration and inflow project that was approved by the council and the bid to our contractor, McGuire and Hester, on June 8th. What this project is a $4.25 million project to essentially prevent stormwater from coming into our sewer lines in the city. And why that's important is because if you don't prevent that from coming in, that storm drainage can overwhelm our sewage treatment plant. And so we went out and pursued this grant to essentially correct leaks in our system, and in some cases put in liners into the sewer lines throughout the community. And we have been doing quite a bit of public outreach for this project through our website and social media. We also go out when we have a street that and it's happening all throughout the community. So virtually, I wouldn't say every street, but many streets within the community that we didn't do on our last I&I project. And so, but what we do is when we know we're going to be out on a street, our contractor goes out there 2 weeks ahead of time and puts a door hanger on every single home or every single business to let them know that it's coming. And then both the contractor and our inspection staff, which is Somas and Associates, are out there to answer any questions that residents or businesses might have. To answer, I'm sorry, I don't have the specifics on Rose Avenue and whether it will be the plan is to trench all the way down to lift station 3. I can get back to Mr. Stockwin separately with that information. But we do repave and replace any sidewalks or other infrastructure that is moved or altered when we're out there. Now we are coordinating this project with the CDBG road rehab project. So there are about 6 or 7 roads in the community where we're going to go through and repave all of those roads in their or portions or all of those roads in their entirety. And when we have that case, we may put in a temporary patch, and then we'll be coming in the spring with a full repave. So
fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other public comment at this time? We sure can. We'll go ahead and take a 2-minute recess. We'll be right back. Go ahead and reconvene, everybody. So I'm going to call everybody back to the open session now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public comment, and I'm just going to give a quick reminder to everybody that public comment for the purpose of the meeting this evening is expected to be within the subject matter of this jurisdiction and the subject matter boundaries of our control. So if your public comment is not something that is within our jurisdiction and our control, we will not be entertaining your public comment this evening. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. Would anybody in the room tonight like to make a public comment? Come on up.
Suzanne Roberts, the City of Colfax. And I would like to know if the council would consider making a few changes to the closed session. And one would be to have the closed session after the general meeting, because it's getting to be winter time and the public goes outside to wait while you have your closed session, which could be 15 minutes to an hour and a half. The other option would be to move the closed session into the city manager's office so the public can stay in here. So, I just wondered if that would be a possibility. So,
Thank you very much for bringing that up. A couple of those suggestions have actually already been incorporated into a forthcoming document that the council will be looking to approve. So we appreciate the suggestions.
Tom Parnham. I have a couple of items. One is it's very confusing when people give presentations and they keep using TLAs. And you know what a TLA is? 3-letter acronym. I wish they would just say what it is. And I know we're used to, amongst ourselves, we can do it to expedite it, but for the public, it's very confusing. The second thing is this first responders dinner that's coming up. I would like to suggest that, our first responders, meaning the road workers and the sewer plant operators, they're first responders too. And I know I've been called out on a down power line Christmas Eve. And I think it would be important, to let them know that this is happening and it's for them too. I know the fire department and the police, they put their lives on the line, but on 9/11, when all that happened, there were a lot of city workers that were going up those stairs too. And I just, would like to remind the council to think of your own workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, any other public comment in the room? All right, we're going to go ahead and move to our online comments at this time. So Marguerite, if you want to go ahead and give us the first speaker, if you could please state your name and if you live within the jurisdiction and what you'd like to speak about.
Hello, my name is Gassimal and I live in Colfax, and I would just like to speak about council jurisdiction outside of the agenda items.
Yes, this is exactly what this section of the agenda is for. So if you have something within our jurisdiction that's outside of our regular agenda, now would be the time to speak on it.
Okay, yeah, I'm just afraid that Colfax seems to be selling out. It used to be a great town. It's still better than a lot of other towns, but it seems like slowly but surely, things are going down in decline. It seems like, the mayor and some other city officials are complicit in this. Selling out to foreign interests and dual citizenships with Israel. And it seems like there's a lot of Jews in Colfax that are purposely undermining and subverting, Colfax and screwing over to the actual people here to cater to a group of.
Comment right here. Before we continue, I would like to remind everybody that the expectation here tonight is that if you're going to share public comment, that you are genuinely going to be speaking to us about something within our subject matter and our jurisdiction that we actually have control over. I would ask everybody to please be respectful, to please direct your comments towards the council. And if you have any suggestions for us that are not going to be a violation of anybody's constitutional rights, that would be fantastic. And we can go from there. So we can go ahead and move forward. And with that in mind, please note that this council will not entertain any form of action that will be in violation of anybody's constitutional rights. So please go ahead and continue.
Okay, yeah, I really appreciate you. Yeah, hello, I'd like to finish speaking if you said you're not going to tramp on my rights. Yeah, so
within your control.
Next speaker, please.
Oh, did we lose him or? Oh, no, he hasn't finished his 5 minutes. He can finish up. Okay, sounds good. We'll move to the next speaker, and then if he does rejoin, we'll go ahead and go from there.
Next speaker, go ahead. Next speaker, initials RS. Go ahead.
So Ray, this is your opportunity to speak. If you'd like to speak, I'm going to need you to begin your comments, or I'm going to have to move on to the next speaker.
He's left, it looks like.
Okay, who's our next speaker?
JS, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead and state your name and your subject matter.
Okay. Jew Destroyer. I'm calling about civil rights, which has to do with equity programs that you enact within your ordinances on your level in Colfax. And I do live on 1488 Smith Street. I would like to ask that please, the young lady that keeps interrupting everyone, to please understand the civil rights that we have here include you guys not interrupting our free speech. I'm not going to use any vulgarity or any curses or any violence or anything like that. And I most certainly have protected free speech. And you, young lady, do not have a right to interrupt me. So I would like to ask you, please do not do that.
Judy,
Okay?
I'm going to actually stop you really here as a point of order. During this meeting, at all times, it is my responsibility to run this meeting and to determine when people speak and when they do not.
Oh my goodness. Is my mic back on? Listen, I honestly know you like to talk, but please let me have a chance to talk now, okay? You've made it clear how much of an authoritarian you are, but now it's my time to speak, and I have civil rights, and I have a lawyer too. So if you want a civil rights violation lawsuit, keep interrupting me. Okay, I have a point to make, and your interrupting is not cohesive to me making my point. I think anyone logical would say that. Okay, so please stop it. That's immature. It's not as a leader should be. Okay. Please interrupt again and tell me that you're my leader and you have to tell me to be quiet. Listen, this isn't grade school. Please let me speak. Okay. Am I going to have a chance to speak now or do you have to interrupt me again? I understand you're the boss. Okay. I understand. I'm submissive to you. Is that it? Is that enough? Okay. Now let me get to it. We have an equity program, which you guys use in a lot of your ordinances, which is racist against whites. And I want to tell you that when you have language that says that you need to even out the playing field and you need to allow for misrepresented or underrepresented groups to have opportunities, what you're doing is you're holding opportunities from white people who have now been intimidated and scared and feel unsafe to speak this in public because of your authoritarianism like you're doing, young lady. I'm sorry to tell you that's out of line. Now, when white people decide to call and stick up and defend themselves, that's our right, the same as any other group. Now, when you have a group in your room filled with Mexicans who want to stick up for their rights, or you have blacks that want to stick up for their rights, or women or anything like that, if you had a room filled with 100 white people sticking up for their rights and just getting sick of the double standards on civil liberties and free speech, what would you call that? Would you call that a Klan rally or something like that? That's the type of double standard racism that we have to deal with as white people. And a lot of it has to do with what seems to be baby boomers and authoritarian young ladies like you who think that you know the civil rights and the Constitution better than us. And you absolutely do not. That's clear. Okay. So what I ask you to do is consider your equity operations the same way as the Supreme Court has looked at affirmative action. Affirmative action has been thrown out recently when a group of Asian students sued, and they got it thrown out because it was racist against Asians and whites who were being held back to give browns and blacks a better chance. Now it's en vogue to talk about we need to help BIPOCs and so on. And this is absolutely within your purview because you use it in your ordinances to give advantages to non-whites, and that is racist. And I'm here to talk about it. And your interruptions of people is so out of line, young lady. You're immature and you don't know what you're talking about. So as much as people want to interrupt you and you want to disrespect people, interrupt them, I'm allowed to disrespect you. Look it up. It's in the civil rights. And by the way, hate speech is protected speech. So if I say I hate you because you interrupt me, or I hate you for any reason, I'm allowed to do that. Okay. And you can't cut me off. This isn't your world. I could sue your city and I could take your money. And if you want to keep bullying around people because of their point of view, go ahead and do it at your own peril. I'm making points here that there are a lot of people that are intimidated and scared to mention because of people like you badgering people like me when we want to speak. So please be quiet. If not, shut up and listen for once. I don't know if you ever tried that before. Now, when I'm allowed to be disrespectful too, by the way, if you look that up, I am. Go ahead and violate my civil rights, lady. Okay. Now, when you guys are racist against white people, there's going to be a backlash. There are white people that are sick of the double standard. And when you have the ADL front group being used to protect Jews, and this guy, Jonathan Greenblatt on TV, protecting Jews and free speech against Jews all the time, where is the group to protect whites from the racist language in your ordinances saying that you need to even things out because of white ownership? Where is that group protecting us? It's not there. We have to do it ourselves. When you hear the Jews complain about how scared they are to come into civil meetings because they are being criticized in public, which is allowed to do, that is not hate speech. I don't know where you went to school, okay? But that is criticism. That's what First Amendment's there for, is to protect us.
You have now.
Do you want violence? Do you want violence or do you want speech? Can you interrupt me again?
Any one of our speakers is more than welcome to familiarize themselves with the Brown Act and Robert's Rules of Order at any time. All right, we'll move to our next speaker.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, my name is Leonard Frank, and I would like to commendate that last speaker there for his protection and appreciation of the First Amendment right that we are God given here in the United States of America. And we were talking earlier about perimeters and borders, and there's something that I would like to point out that is an issue right now in our current nation, and especially for us southern states right now. Let me fix my mic there, I get some breath going on. We're having an influx of migrants over the southern border that are flooding our southern nations, our southern states, and they're expanding throughout the rest of the country. And I just want to point out that every single of mass migration, every single thing about it, it's Jewish. Now let's look at what Barbara Lerner Spector, founder of PEADA, European Institute for Jewish Studies in Sweden, said. She said that Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. She also said that Jews are going to be at the center of that. And they are now going into a multicultural mode, and that the Jews will be resented because of their leading role. And that's true. We should resent them for, diversifying our country and ruining what was once a great nation before the Hart-Celler Act in 1965. George Soros, founder and board chair of the Open Society Foundations, once said, "Our plan treats the protection of refugees as the objective and national borders as the obstacle." Now, I, as an American citizen, would like to think that our national borders are there to protect us, not to allow all of these rapists and bad people into our country. Why do we need to add more people into our country that are just going to become homeless in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Doesn't matter the timeline. They don't have the skills to succeed in America. They should not be here. They should not be allowed into the country. And George Soros again said Europe has to accept at least 1 million asylum seekers annually for the foreseeable future. And I refer to Europe as all European nations, Canada, United States, Europe as a continent, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. All right. The EU ought to borrow money to pay for surge funding for refugees. Again, George Soros. Let's talk about Emmanuel Seller. All right. He's a US congressman, 39th of the House of Representatives. Actually, he was part of the Hart-Celler Act in 1965. He said, "It is the purpose of the majority of the Immigration Committee to encourage assimilation. Yet this bill has already done more than anything I know of to bring about discord among our resident aliens." And he also said, "I had fought against the unjust restriction of aliens." Now, why would we want discord amongst the aliens in our country? That seems very anti-European, anti-white to me. It seems like he was trying to start a violent movement or resurrection against the white communities and the white majority in this nation. Let's stop by Bill Crystal here, founder of the Project for the New American Century, PNAC. "If things are so bad as you say with the white working class, why don't you just want to get new Americans in?" he says. "You need people who are poor from other parts of the country and other nations who want to get wealthy, who want to get rich, who want to move ahead in life in order to keep the country moving, because the white majority gets fat, dumb, happy, and lazy. Why are we allowing these illegal invaders in? They're displacing our populations. They're lowering our grade scores in our schools. We have children right now who are 15 years old and they can't read. They've never read a book in their life. And those statistics are skewed wholeheartedly because we let African American migrants, Mexican migrants, Middle Eastern migrants, and all sorts of this other scum of the earth people in, and they skew our population rates, they skew our statistics, and they are making us a third world country. We used to be a world superpower, but guess where we are now? Hell, even Canada's above us in world happiness scores, world education scores, and Canada is a complete communist country. They might as well be Cuba of the North. I don't understand why our government is allowing our nation to degrade to such a state that we are unable and going to be unable to recover from it in the next generation or two, because we keep letting this dirt, this degeneracy in our country. And don't even get me started on the LGBTQMAP propaganda. We have homosexuals reading to children in libraries, exposing their genitals. We have full-grown men walking into women's bathrooms, again, exposing their genitals, masturbating in these women's washrooms in front of women. And it's just, where do we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? I can tell you right now, it was the moment after World War II where we let the Jewish influence start controlling our country and start controlling the West. It is their degenerative practices that they state in the Talmud They state it right down like this.
You've reached your 5-minute limit for public comment. We'll go ahead and move on to the next speaker. I'm just going to remind everybody that for our speakers, it is most helpful and constructive if we receive a specific ask for policy direction. Outside of receiving that specific ask for policy direction, we really have no ability to act on your public comment. So with that, we will move on to the next speaker.
It's 5 minutes. Go ahead, next speaker.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, council, and thank you for your time this evening. My name is Mike Delaney. I'm a documentary filmmaker based here in Colfax, and I'd like to tell you about a screening of my latest project called 9/11 Missing Links that I'll be hosting in town this weekend. This documentary outlines the who and the why of the attacks instead of the how. If you consider yourself a patriot and want to honor the thousands of civilians and first responders that died, as well as our military service members that died in the subsequent wars, go to 911missinglinks.com. That's 911missinglinks.com. That will give you the event info for this weekend. And if you can't make it, just check out the documentary on your own time instead of, just binging some Netflix garbage. I've also created a 10-part documentary series on communism called Europa, the Last Battle. That is available at watcheuropa.com. Thank you for your time tonight. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for that. We'll go ahead and move to the next speaker.
Yes, hello. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here and giving us free speech tonight. Here's my speech for the night. We are tired of being ruled by those that hate our very existence. We are everywhere. We are here to defend our country from these vile parasites. We cannot coexist with these people. We must separate and peacefully expel all enemies of the white race. Our future will either be of God, nation, and family, or degenerate filth. We are at a moment in time where we still have a choice. Pick a side. Will you stand for the right of the white race to exist, or do you stand with the pedophile Marxist Jews? Our people have built this nation, and European empires throughout histories. We can and we will arise from the ashes. Adolf Hitler was not hated for the so-called Jewish genocide or tyranny. He was hated for being the enemy of communists. At all costs, he made sacrifices for our people to take a stand against Bolsheviks, communists, and enemies of God. He wanted a future for our people, for us to live in peace in a world free of filth. It took all the communist Jewry and other scum uniting to keep us enslaved. General George Patton was quoted as saying, "Gentlemen, I have come this morning to the inexcusable conclusion that we have fought on the wrong side of this entire war. We should have fought with the fascists against the communists and not the other way around. I fear that in perhaps 50 years, America will pay a dear price and become a land of corruption and degenerate morals. We may have lost that battle, but we will win, and we will set our people free of the Zionist occupation. It should be illegal for the ADL and others to lie about the Holocaust. It simply didn't happen. Gas chambers were delousing of fleas. There were no Jew skin lampshades. There was no soap being made from human remains. Schindler's List and all other propaganda films were simply Holly Jewwood. Anne Frank's diary was written in ballpoint pen, which didn't exist until after the war. The famous book Night by Elie Wiesel was a total fabrication. He claimed babies were used like skeet and shot with machine guns, that Jews were burned alive, and other asinine acts of violence occurred. Historians have proven these claims false. 6 million Jews did not die. Zyklon B was never used. If the events were true, they wouldn't need to pass laws to stop people from questioning it. Truth can be investigated. Only someone with something to hide would try to silence anyone who wants to examine the so-called facts. The real genocide was perpetrated by the Jews in Ukraine from 1920 to 1933. Marxist Jews starved 16 to 20 million people. Men, women, and children were forced to eat bugs, tree bark, cats, and dogs, and sometimes resorted to cannibalism. This real-life mass murder was called the Holodomor. We can't let them silence those exposing their dirty past. This wasn't the only time that Jews have gone on to mass murder us goyim. These people lie and use the Holocaust to garner sympathy so they can continue to fraud us all. While I wish they were true, I have to inform you that the stories of the Holocaust are simply fiction. We're not going to take it. America is the last stand and we have nowhere to run. If we all unite, we can have a Jew-free country and national pride restored. To learn the truth, go to gtvflyers.com and watch Defiant Madonna and Stag. Adolf Hitler, the British story never told, and Europa, the last battle. Other sources for real media is stormfront.org. Hail victory.
Yeah, it should. Okay. You finished?
Yeah.
We have Ray. And next speaker.
Hello, can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now, Ray. You're welcome to go ahead and begin.
All right, sorry about the technical difficulties. It's just kind of a coincidence I came here today to talk about this and listen to those other speakers and what they have to say, because I found one of these flyers that have been going around in the news on my driveway yesterday morning before I was walking my dog at around 6 a.m. And it says every single aspect of baby penis sucking is Jewish. Don't hate the flyers, hate the baby penis vampires. And then it has the same link that these other callers are talking about, gtvflyers.com. So I go to the website. I found this was all over my neighbors' lawns as well in District 5. Everybody had one on their lawn or their driveway. So after going to the website, I start to see these other flyers explaining that, you know, every single aspect of the media is Jewish and that 6 Jewish corporations own 96% of our media, and it lists all the names of the CEOs and founders, and they're all Jewish. And every single aspect of the COVID agenda was Jewish. The CDC director, Rachel Walensky, was Jewish. The deputy director was Jewish. Chief of staff was Jewish. All these people are Jewish, and it's crazy that that this is happening here in our city. But well, not only our city, but in our country. You know, these are things that I wasn't aware of, but definitely highly suspicious of things like mass immigration. You know, we see an influx of all these third worlders in our country, and we're sticking them, you know, wherever we can, while our own American people are becoming homeless because they can't afford to pay their bills. You know, the interest rates at the Federal Reserve, they just keep going up and up and up. And in the Federal Reserve, it seems all the chairmen have, you know, out of 14 of them, over half of them have been Jews. So I mean, it's just weird that, you know, all these atrocities and things that we have to deal with, there's always a Jew behind it. And you know, 9/11 was Jewish. All the information is here on gtvflyers.com, gtvflyers.com. You could see for yourself. And it's I looked it up and I fact checked it all. You know, I don't know if you guys were aware of these flyers going around in Colfax. I mean, they even list that the transatlantic slave trade was Jewish, and all the slave ships that even brought the blacks here to America were all owned by Jews. So this is stuff that I didn't know. And they have this book called the Talmud, and it's very anti-Christian when you start to look at it. It says things like all non-Jew children are animals. When a Jew murders a non-Goy, there will be no death penalty. When the Messiah comes, every Jew will have 2,800 slaves. Jews must always try to deceive Christians. And I'm starting to really not like these Jewish people. And you know, I think here in Colfax, you should probably start taking some steps to maybe build up a labor camp or something to put these people in, and then we can do to them what they are doing to us.
Comment right there. Unfortunately, inciting any kind of violence or rounding up of other people that violates their civil rights is a form of hate speech that is not permitted in this forum. It is not protected by the First Amendment, and I'm not going to permit it in this meeting. We will go ahead and move to the next speaker, and I'm just going to say as a reminder to please remember that there are certain forms of speech that are not protected by the First Amendment. Yes, you are allowed to make comments towards the council. You don't have to like us. You don't have to be polite. You don't have to be pleasant. However, there are certain types of speech that we do not have to permit in this forum, and we will not permit in this forum, and hate speech that incites violence against others is one of them. So we'll go ahead and move to the next speaker, and let's keep that in mind.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello, City Council. Thank you for your time. I'd like to focus on the issue of violent crime. I have a question that everybody is thinking, but nobody is willing to ask. Why is 7% of the population allowed to commit 62% of all violent crime? When are we going to expel the niggers that commit these crimes and the kikes that allow it to continue? White power, hail Hitler, hail handsome truth.
Next speaker.
The only way we are going to solve the housing problem is if we deport all of the illegal aliens who are falsely claiming asylum and close our borders. Illegal aliens have become a massive problem in our country and are perpetuated by our politicians who are encouraged, paid, and or blackmailed by the Jews who control our government and want to destroy our nation. Our schools are overcrowded, our housing prices are massively overpriced, and there are not enough jobs to go around. Illegal aliens taking jobs that Americans won't do is a big fat lie. There are no jobs that an American won't do. That's just a myth created by the Jews who want to ruin our country and wipe out the white population. They are doing this to every white nation in the world. We do not need this influx of illegal aliens. We never have and we never will. Evening. I remember when there was smog in Southern California and now there is not. The temperatures are the same also. Climate change is a hoax. Fossil fuels are the most ridiculous subject ever, that nobody cares and is used to steal money from the people and put into the pockets of the politicians and their masters, the Jews. What you are calling climate change is nothing but an influx of Hispanics and Africans that nobody wants here, being brought to us and pushed upon us by the Jews. They're using up our resources and coming here to sponge off of us and take advantage. The revolution is not going to be televised. I absolutely hate the smell of pot. Can we please make it illegal again in California? It makes me feel like I want to vomit and only Negroes and beaners smoke that shit. Pretty please with sugar on top? Trans women are men. Trans men are women. Check out White Lives Matter on Twitter, Telegram and Gab. GDL controls the media. Are men.
We have one more race. Next speaker, go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Have any of you ever heard of the Talmud? For those that don't know, it's one of the books that the Judaic faith uses to guide them. It can be found in every synagogue across America and the world. I welcome you to fact check my claims and consider what you may have previously believed to be wrong. Here's some examples of scripture from that Talmud. Yemamoth 49b. Jesus was a bastard born of adultery. Sanhedrin 58b. If a non-Jew hits a Jew, he must be killed. Yalkut 245.0. Extermination of the Christians is a necessary sacrifice. Sanhedrin 57a. What a Jew steals from a non-Jew, he may keep. Kethuboth 11b. A man who engaged in an intercourse with a girl less than 3 years of age has done nothing. Glitton 57a. Jesus is in hell being boiled in hot excrement. Zohar 1160a. Jews must always try to deceive Christians. Baba Mexia 11:4b. The non-Jews are not humans, they are beasts. Zohar Toldoth Noah 65b. When the Messiah comes, every Jew will have 2,800 slaves, which is an interesting piece of scripture considering the American slave trade was Jewish. Louis Farrakhan, a public speaker, said, "How did I get to be an anti-Semite? What have I done? I told the truth about Jewish involvement in the slave trade. Blacks and whites shouldn't be enemies. We should be working together to expel Jews from our country. As a society, we are allowed to criticize everyone but one protected group. They cry out in pain as they strike us. Every aspect of the media is Jewish. Every aspect of the government is Jewish. Our wars are fought for Jewish interest. Our whole existence is on Jewish supremacy. The group has been expelled over 109 times throughout history. They lie about being persecuted, they lie about the Holocaust, and they continue to gaslight any opposition for the demonic plans." I also wanted to ask about, if you go on Google, you type in oral suctioning. There's a thing called Musve Bapay. Hold on here. Oral suctioning rabbi. If you go to nyc.gov, there's a thing here called Metzava Bapay, direct oral suctioning. Goes on, this is on nyc.health. This is real. When a baby is circumcised, some ritual Jewish circumcisers called Mohalm do a practice called Metzava Bapay. Is when the Mohel uses his mouth to suck blood away from the baby's circumcision wound. It's part of the circumcision ritual. After Metzava Bapay, some babies get infection, and if you go back to Google and look at news, and you type in rabbis herpes, you get nonstop page after page of babies herpes linked to circumcision. 4 babies get herpes from Jewish circumcision. Here's an article from ABC. Baby dies of herpes after baby circumcision by Orthodox Jews. Now, why are we tolerating Jews, sexually abusing children? I thought they're God's chosen people, they claim, but they're really a bunch of baby penis sucking vampires. It's just disgusting. If a Catholic priest was abusing a child, we'd all condemn it. But because it's a rabbi, we just say, oh, that's okay. That's his religion. He can suck all the baby's penises he wants. He can sit there and just suck away, and babies are dropping dead, and babies are getting herpes, and we just tolerate it. So that's just what Jews do, and then we just had the holiday here, Yom Kippur, and Jews like to take a chicken and beat it to death. It's a horrible thing. Even PETA has condemned them, and they beat a chicken to death, and they think they're casting their sins into it. I mean, if I was out sucking a baby off, I might want to try to cast my sins away too. But the Jews are still the synagogue of Satan, and they belong in hell. White fucking power. Thank you.
All right. How many more speakers do we have? All right. Public comment is now closed. We're going to move to council and staff reports.
Nothing to report tonight.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, Placer County Economic Development Board, we usually meet in Auburn, but last week we met up at Kings Beach, and just a brief summary of some of the things that were discussed was the lake is now at 61 foot clarity, which is an improvement over 66 feet. Okay. There are projected to be 1 million people that will be living between Roseville and Reno in the next 10 years. So that's going to make this area very crowded. Scott Alvord, the specialist in economic development in Roseville, says they are building a 2 million square foot retirement place, 6 stories tall, up in the Lake Tahoe area. Galleria celebrated its 23rd year anniversary. Gas and Truckee hit $7 briefly. And I invited everybody in Truckee to drive down to Arco and fill it with cheap gas.
Good one, Kevin.
And my last thing is the artists, local artists have created a giant globe and they want to donate it to the city, and they thought they could put it by the park by the library. And there might be a picture of this.
Marguerite's gonna.
Oh, there we go. It weighs about 600 pounds. And there's a pedestal already created for it at the park by the library. So it'd be just a question of them putting it. Oh, with the floodwaters washed it away there. Anyhow, there it is. And it's very nice looking. So they would like the council's blessing. It's free. They want to donate it.
So it's just over 2 feet wide and what?
4 feet tall.
4 feet tall.
Yeah.
But that includes a pedestal. You said there's already a pedestal over there.
Well, a flat concrete area to read.
Oh, okay, it's not a pedestal.
A base, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a base where it wouldn't go collapse into the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they have like a drawing of where they think it should go in it? Because it's not a big park. There's not a lot of space over there.
Yeah,
It's
it's,
got the one already, the one placard already.
yeah, it's about 8 feet from that 1,000-pound piece of granite or quartz. Yeah, it's about 8 feet from that, the same distance from the road. So it would look nice. It'd be in harmony. It's
Yeah. Interesting. Do you know what it's made out of? Is it something we're gonna have to consider repainting periodically, or they would?
no,
maintain that?
it's special paint. They would take care of it.
They would maintain.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be my concern.
Nothing for us to do.
Okay.
I mean, looks attractive.
What's the purpose of it? I mean, what's the message they're trying to convey with it? I mean, it's a-
Oh, well, with an artist, I'm not
It
sure,
says,
but there's no profanity.
I can't
involved.
read that, so I don't have.
It
the
says
glasses
that-
on.
A subtle reminder of our fragile planet and the threat we all face together. Or the threats we all
The
face.
fragile earth on a pedestal, perhaps.
I think I'd have to go stand out there and see it on the ground, visualize where they want to put it before I can make any decisions like that. I mean, they
But
look
there's
good
that-
on the planet.
There's a red area, this square that would hold it. Now, if you go there, you'll see it,
Mhm.
you know, about 10 feet from that
Yeah,
giant chunk of quartz.
yeah, I'll have to go look at it. And who made it? You said it was an art.
The artist, local artist,
Headed by Jim Bowers.
Jim
Okay,
Bowers,
okay.
Foxy McCleary.
Okay,
You want to put a similar globe at the roundabout. That would be the centerpiece. With the time clock on it.
I like the globe. I like the globe.
I like art.
You like what?
I like art.
I like art. I think art.
So is that something to vote on the next meeting or?
More art is fantastic.
I think I'm gonna need a little more time. I think I need a little more time.
They already have it built, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can go see. So.
I like the concept. You're here.
And we're gonna have issues with flat earthers not liking.
Yeah.
Staff can try to set up a time where council members can go look at it.
Yeah, I need to visual see it itself and see the space before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be interesting.
Well, one way is they could put it there, and if we don't like it, they could take it away. I mean, that'd be one way to do it.
That's heavy, that it's over 700 pounds. It's not gonna be easy, just put it here and. take it
Easy
out.
for us.
That's how Colfax got the gazebo.
Just drop it here and see what happens.
Pretty much, yeah.
No permission, no anything.
I mean, I think we'd want to, think of the groups that use that space, and we know the library uses it sometimes, and we use it during events, so just make sure it's not gonna impede any of that stuff. So, that's all. Just see if it's the best spot for it.
All right, I'll see if I can arrange a viewing.
Yeah.
For it.
I'm interested in investigating further.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm totally down to look into it.
all righty, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Larry,
I have nothing.
Carolyn?
It's been a very quiet start to the month in this one, which is okay. I attended the SACOG meeting for you the other day and it was 2 hours of listening to interesting things in my ear and that was about it. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't come back with saying there's a whole lot to talk about. I was amused. They're talking about all these great emergency plans they want to do where these communities help other communities in emergency and help people evacuate. But then they were concerned about not having the buses fully charged to be able to help evacuate. Charged. That was the very sticking point that how are you going to maintain these electric vehicles to be fully charged so you could actually help in the case of an emergency?
More great thinking about it.
So I got a chuckle out of it. And that's about it.
I have nothing to report. I will ask Mike if you have a minute here, if you can also talk about the Cal OES grant. I don't know if you have any updates, but that's the fire resiliency.
Well, I can start with that because that's easy is been trying to find an update to that, but as yet, I do not have an update for you on that. Other than, it's the same update as we had before, and that's what I've received is it's through Cal OES and it's awaiting FEMA approval. As you know, we're now headed into a potential government shutdown, so that they'd have a new excuse not to fund us. But I'll continue being diligent at trying to get that moving. So, and that's a $6 million grant to fund home hardening and defensible space for residents of Colfax. And hopefully we can get that moving soon. Just a couple things to report to you. One, relative to SACOG is SACOG has, as you know, we have a matching funding for the CDBG road rehabilitation program. And that matching funding actually has to come from the general fund. And so SACOG has offered, and we're investigating this still as a potential loan from SACOG to be paid back with low interest, which would be hopefully lower than what we could have gained of having our money in the bank, so lower than the LAIF rate. And if that's the case, we may be able to work out a loan so we don't have to use the general fund and then repay that loan with our SB1 gas tax funding. So we're investigating that. It's not a done deal yet, but it would have to come back to the council for consideration. It's about $500,000. So no, it's not insignificant. And the reason we're looking at it is because we have a lot of grants right now, including the home hardening one. And the grants that we pursue, most of them are on a reimbursement basis. So we have to cash flow these grants with the money that we have in the bank. And so the more grants we have going on, the harder it is to cash flow these things. So, potentially using SACOG's money as a source of the match temporarily until we get the money from another source might help us with cash flow. So if it pans out, we'll bring it back to you, but it has to be in the best interests of Colfax and we don't want to pay more interest than we would normally earn on our own money. That's kind of what we're using as the guideline. Our public works crews, moving on another road item, continue to feverishly work on filling potholes around the community. We've done a lot of pothole filling here in the older part of Colfax. And then we moved on to South Auburn Street, one of our major thoroughfares, and also South Canyon Way. So we're filling a lot of potholes all over town, and we're trying to do that before the weather gets cold and we can't do that any longer, or it becomes impractical. So you'll see our crews out and about in the community. Unfortunately, that'll result in some temporary street closures or temporary reroutes of traffic and that kind of thing. So, but we're trying to do our best to do as much as we can to repair our roads. We are working with the Chamber of Commerce on another upcoming event, the Oktoberfest event. We have a coordination meeting actually tomorrow with the Chamber. That event is going to be held on Saturday, October 14th, right out here on Main Street from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And the Chamber is advertising on our electronic billboard and other methods. We'll hopefully get a report tomorrow on how their ticket sales are going, or ticket sales, yes, I guess are going, which is through Eventbrite. But mainly the meeting tomorrow is to coordinate any city efforts to, for street closures or trash pickup or anything like that. That's a new event, and the Chamber's hopeful that we'll get a good turnout on the 14th. The last thing I wanted to mention is we, as you know, the county is continually challenged by the issue of solid waste, and most of our solid waste goes down to the Awatma landfill down in Lincoln, near Lincoln, and with the counties having to rebuild most of the MRF system down there to recycle, it's become a big challenge. And one of the potential future threats to that is if one of the bigger jurisdictions in the county that's part of this JPA were they to pull out, the smaller jurisdictions would be kind of left in the lurch, if you will, with higher tipping fees. So with that in mind, the city of Auburn and the town of Loomis have approached Colfax. The two city managers have approached me to participate in looking at a feasibility study of forming a JPA with those other jurisdictions to have better leverage over our respective contracts with for waste hauling, and looking at alternatives potentially to look at other landfills. We think that that's a prudent thing for us to do given the uncertain future of the Awatma landfill. And so we would like to fund a small feasibility study for that to the tune of about $10,000. It would be split three ways, $4,000 by the city of Auburn, $4,000 by the city of Loomis, and they proposed $2,000 from the city of Colfax to do a feasibility study. Our city attorney has been part of the working group, kind of starting to take a look at this, and this falls within my signature authority of up to $10,000. And unless the council would like me to do otherwise, we'd like to move forward with that feasibility study, and then we'd bring it back to you for any further action. But we think this is a prudent approach at this point in time because of the future uncertainty with what our future garbage rates might be.
Very much in support. I think you've got your council direction here.
Okay. And that's all the items I have in my report tonight.
Great, well, fantastic. We do not have any council business this evening, so we're gonna go straight to good of the order.
Just want to say tomorrow night is the Placer Sierra Fire Safe Council meeting here at City Hall at 6 p.m. I hope everybody comes to join us.
During segment public comment, I kind of wrote it away what I was going to say, but the only thing I could think of during that public comment was this is for the benefit of our city attorney, as a quote by George Bernard Shaw: "Good manners consists of how well we conceal how little we think of others."
Nice. I do like that.
And I would add to that we were on video that whole time. For those out there watching in the public, and we still are.
The only thing I'd like to bring up is that I just learned that we don't seem to know.
Your mic's not on.
Excuse me, we don't seem to know right now who is on the Bianchini board. Maybe somebody does, but it's a 7-person board. And it's not clear right now who's on it. And that's something that the city works together with the Sierra Vista Center in administrating that money. So it's something I think we should address to figure out who should be on that 7-person board and then figure out how to staff it.
It's supposed to include 2 members of the city council. One high school student, 2 members of the city council, and 4 members appointed by Sierra Vista.
So we need to ask Sierra Vista who their 4 are then.
And they don't know, so that's where they need to follow up, and then we need to find out what high school student. And is it at our pleasure to appoint a high school student? Is that clear?
It's a high school faculty.
Okay, well then we'll follow up.
Can we give Sierra Vista a deadline as to when they need to have their 4, or how would we facilitate that happening?
We could just ask them to present their 4 at the next meeting.
Okay.
I can take care of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else, Larry?
Nope.
All right, Carolyn.
I don't have a whole lot. The food bank is in Cedar Ridge tomorrow. I don't know why I thought of it today, but yes, if you or your neighbors need help, food bank is in Cedar Ridge. You can pick up from 10 to 12 tomorrow.
Thanks, Carolyn. I don't have anything in the normal course of good of the order, but just some comments and response to that garbage that was spewed earlier that we were all forced to endure. Just want to make some points of clarification for our constituents who unfortunately were subjected to that. We are required to accept public comment, and it's really tricky for us to determine whether or not something is protected under the First Amendment and allowable in these chambers, because there are several categories of speech that are not protected under the First Amendment and have been ruled on by the Supreme Court multiple times. And it's a very hard line to draw on. So unfortunately, we did have to allow that to occur this evening to a certain degree. It definitely was not an easy thing to moderate or determine when the line had been crossed to be able to cut that off. But I will say that from my perspective, I would like to take a moment to publicly condemn those comments that were made of a racist nature that were not productive or helpful whatsoever to our community. Definitely don't condone it. If this behavior does continue, it will put us in a position where we have to consider whether or not we want to continue using Zoom in the future. That would be very unfortunate. But with all that being said, you know, I apologize to our constituents that you had to deal with that and that they were able to use what should have been your platform for something unsavory and not appropriate, to put it very nicely. So I digress. Mike, staff, does anyone have anything for good of the order?
That's not a digression. I'll just follow up on your comments. The council can regulate time, place, and manner, but cannot regulate content. And that's the challenge.
The only thing that I would add is this is actually happening to many of the jurisdictions in Sacramento, the Sacramento region right now. There's the city of Sacramento faced this last week and is considering removing Zoom from their meetings, which they also feel is very unfortunate.
Yeah, we as this was going on, we were able to discover this has been going on repeatedly. You know, and of course, they made several fraudulent statements, of course, in the course of their public comments. This has been going on repeatedly all over the state. So this very unfortunate, and I apologize for any way that I could have handled this better. And I just want to say that publicly because this was a very difficult meeting for me. Thank you. Do you have any comments there?
Yeah, I had one comment. Item 7, public comment. Item 11 was adjournment. So the city attorney being from Las Vegas, is it possible to reverse 7 and 11?
Define reverse.
Well, we have 11 comes before 7. Is that?
You mean to adjourn in the middle of public comment?
Yeah.
It was cute.
Okay.
All right, well, with that, I'll give an opportunity if we have any public comment on good of the order. Anything online there, Marguerite?
There's nothing online.
All right, perfect. Public comments closed and we're adjourned. Thank you.